Well, for more on the cybersecurity skirmish between the U.S. and China, I spoke to Douglas Paal, the Vice President for Studies at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. I asked him about the public dimension of the dispute.
Well, it's gone public because Congress, in the form of the House Permanent Subcommittee on Intelligence, conducted hearings and then published a report to support legislation to force the administration to inform American targets of hacking, how they're being hacked and how to prevent it. The administration, in seeing that legislation coming inevitably, then issued executive orders to start this process of informing the public about the problem. And at the same time, they've had to try to engage the Chinese government to see if we can't find a bilateral solution to some of these problems.
The president is meeting with business leaders at the White House today to talk about this issue. Does that amp things up some?
It might amp things up, and it's really important that the United States and China find some way to take a grip of this issue, because if it's left without officials engaged in trying to resolve some of the more outrageous behavior, then Congress will run with it. And if the Congress does that, it could take perfectly functioning parts of the U.S.-China relationship and make them hostage to these non-functioning parts. And that's a path we've been down before, and it doesn't lead to a good outcome.
Talk to me about best case scenario and worst case scenario if that were to happen.
Best case scenario is we propose, let's say at the new Strategic and Economic Dialogue in May or June, that we have a cyber dialogue and we talk about things of concern to both of us. That would be cyber theft, cyber fraud, intellectual property rights, child pornography, drug trading, illegal pharmaceuticals, things like that. There's an interest in China in stemming the misbehavior in this area, and there is here. We ought to start with that and then see how far we can go.
Douglas, there's been a lot of trade disputes between the United States and China of late. How would you frame this latest dispute? Is this take it to a new level, or is this just one of many? And how will it impact bilateral relations in your estimation?
It engages this national security arena, which is different from most of the trade agreements. Some trade agreements touch on national security concerns about technology transfer, but this is about spying, intrusion, disruption, as well as property theft. Some of these things we can't resolve between the two sides, they'll just go on. But some things really need to be brought under control. Property theft for commercial purposes is certainly something that China ought to be able to help us address.
We spoke to a guest in Beijing just the other night who says, look, China's been a victim too. Every country's dealing with this. Is there any simple solution out there in your estimation?
If there were a simple solution, this would have been done. The problem is that it's very complex and it involves both national security interests and commercial. I think the first thing that has to be done is to separate those, to make this commercial concerns first. Secondly, there's a long domestic agenda for each of us in our own countries. The United States is falling behind on hardware in the structure of the infrastructure of the internet, and we need to upgrade software and also increase awareness that malware comes in because people make mistakes and accept malware into the systems. And to stop that, you have to have better discipline among the people in these corporations and other entities.
Douglas Paal, thank you so much for talking to us. Appreciate it.
Been a pleasure.